All right, so I'm gonna go to YouTube soon, and so make sure to follow me so I can actually put a full clip in there without having to clip all these mini bites, because Instagram is made for the adults today that have childlike attention spans. But today I want to talk about the misplaced, in my opinion, attention that people have been putting on the First Amendment in regards to the Jimmy Kimmel firing and Trump's crackdown on free speech. Because from my understanding, that the firing of Jimmy Kimmel is not a violation of the First Amendment. And the lawyers will probably come up with something, and I hope that they do. But the First Amendment protects our rights under the government of free speech, right? So it prevents the government from directly punishing us for our speech. But it really doesn't say anything about what is happening in this case, which is that Trump has indirectly applied pressure on ABC and Disney and their ownership that lacks testicular fortitude, and into firing Jimmy Kimmel. So that's the problem. Now, Obama really said this right, where he said that the firing of Jimmy Kimmel goes against everything that the First Amendment stands for. Now, you could be one of those MAGA guys and look at this as some justification that what Trump did is not wrong, and that it's a liberal freak out. Or you can think in a nuanced way and recognize that two truths exist. One is that this is not a direct violation of the First Amendment. And the second is that Trump's fascist crackdown on free speech is an existential threat to everything that a free society and a democracy is supposed to stand for. And now, if you can think and try to and accept these two truths as being simultaneous, then we can actually get somewhere and understand what the core problem is. And this goes very deep, but what I want to talk about today is how this case is really evidence of our overestimated faith that we have on the rule of law. Because the anachronisms with the First Amendment towards protecting our political speech in a world that is much different than what the founders imagined. Economically, as it's not an agrarian republic where production exists mostly on a private level with either self-sufficient individuals or slave owners, and versus a multinational corporate capitalist world where production, like in this ABC case, is is so large, right? Jimmy Kimmel is both a manager of his show, but he answers to all these other corporate board heads. And so it doesn't anticipate that, which makes things much different, because this creates intermediary forces that, other than the government, that can present the same threat to your free political speech. And it was an economic world that the founders did not live in. And then the other difference, right, is that the founders lived in a world where there was a clearer distinction between the private and the public. Right? They thought of their economics or in terms of production. And then, so the thinking is that the economic world is where you assure the means to sustenance and your material needs, and then that allows you to participate in politics. But now, production in politics is so inseparable, because now your 9-to-5 job, right, might be working for some media corporation, and so knowledge becomes embedded in speech, becomes embedded within the production process itself. So these are vastly different circumstances. Now, you can think of this as, all right, and blame the founders for, not being, future predictors, and not having enough psychics in Monticello, or you can more reasonably look at the limitations within the First Amendment as a symptom of the broader limitations of all law. And that is that law cannot anticipate the changes in future circumstances. And for however smart your lawmakers are, they're bound to not speak about changes in the future, and as a result of that, there's going to be a lot of ambiguity and a big gap now between what a universally society with a neutral playing field with guarantees the rights for all, what it needs, what the law actually provides. And the only way to fill that gap is the political process at the end of the day. Yes, the Supreme Court justices will make a ruling, but at the end of the day, they're still appointed as a result of the president. So they're subject to electoral pressures, and they're these justices, as much as they want to claim that they're originalists, there's just not enough information, inevitably, to know in a lot of circumstances what the original intent of the lawmaker is. And so the problem now with this idea that self-interest, as being as the ethic of society, that the rule of law permits to run its course, is that same ethic of self-interest actually prevents us from having a rule of law in the first place. Because if the political process is run as a conflict between people's interests, and there's not any Montesquieu, who was like the architect of the separation of powers, who would refer to as virtue, if that there's no social way of inculcating that virtue and a shared commitment that of universalism, then what ends up happening is that the rule of law ceases to function effectively, because the new interpretations and ambiguities that have to be filled become the outcome of a struggle, and in this case, a very polarized struggle that ends up producing new rules and standards that are anything but neutral.